With the recent announcement of FM24's official release date, a lot of you guys, like me I'm sure, will be sitting there thinking about what your first save of the new game is going to be. Well, today we're going to try and help you with that by giving you 10 save ideas for FM24, and we'll be focusing on those clubs that have had lots of success in the past, but recently things have dried up a little bit. Obviously FM24 isn't out yet, so we are using the old version of the game to show you these teams, but of course when you get the new game they'll have updated transfers and whatnot, and the first team that we're going to focus on is Everton. Now, like I say, 10 saves, all varying levels of challenges, some in lower divisions, some in higher divisions, and these teams all come from a great article by Seabass. He helps us out with a lot of these save ideas videos, and I'll link his article below where he's got much more detailed descriptions about these teams and why you should manage them than what I'm going to give you. But Everton, why would they make a good save? Well, firstly, this is obviously a team in the Premier League that is expected to be in a relegation battle, and that is going to be a challenge in itself. Although if he's as good in FM24 as he was in FM23, then you might be okay because Beto up front is going to score you a ton of goals, I'm sure. But yes, your job will be to keep Everton up under pretty tricky circumstances. This is a club that have had plenty of success in their history. If you don't believe me, they are one of the most successful sides in English football with 9 top division titles, but there's been no trophies since the new millennia, and they've been stuck in these relegation battles for year upon year now with no real sign of getting out. So your job is going to be to try and take this struggling Premier League side to title winners yet again. It's not going to happen in 1 year unless you're some kind of football manager god, but after a few years hopefully you can start to get there and start to bring some success to what is a absolutely massive fan base that come down to Goodison Park. And also what we might be seeing on FM24, if all things go ahead as they look like they might, you might actually have a takeover at the club, because it looks like in real life there might be a takeover secured. Whether it will be done in time for the new game, I don't know, but there is a good chance you will have a new board, a new backing behind you, potentially with some more cash to spend to try and take this club back to the top. Before we carry on with the other 9 teams though, I want you guys to help me out a little bit. I want you to go into the comments down below and let us know what save you're going to do when FM24 comes out. That way we'll have a huge list of teams in the comments, and if these 10 aren't good enough for you, there'll hopefully be more to pick from down there. And whilst you're down there, if you want to smash that like button for us, that would really help the video out in terms of the YouTube performance. The algorithm sees that you've liked it, thinks it's a good video, and pushes it out to more people. So yeah, thank you to anyone who does that. Don't forget to subscribe as well as we push for 200k subs, and let's get on to team number 2. Now don't worry, not every single one of these saves is going to be in England, but we'll focus on nation by nation, and our other suggestion for an English save is to go into the Championship and to take over at Sunderland. Once again, like Everton, this is a club with a huge fan base, with an absolutely massive history. However, currently their rivals, who if you don't know are Newcastle, are having a great time at the minute. They are getting Champions League football, doing very well. Meanwhile, Sunderland have had a few relegations in recent years, but have made their way back into the Sky Bet Championship and actually look pretty good for it at the start of this year. They seem to have signed some good players, a lot of focus on younger players as well, so when you do have that squad, it's going to be very exciting to use lots of these young talents with plenty of potential. They're a team that seems to be getting better and better year on year recently, and there's a good chance they'll be in with a promotion push yet again. So your job will be to try and make that a reality, get Sunderland back into the Premier League, overtake Newcastle, and hopefully push on to what will be the club's 7th top division win. Now this is a club that's been appearing on the save ideas list for years now, and really their struggles have only got worse. It's AS Saint-Étienne. Now younger football fans might see this and just think it's another French club, you know, PSG, Marseille, Lyon, they've always been the best French sides. No, not true. Saint-Étienne have 10 Ligue 1 titles, or top division French titles. They were runners up in the Champions League, but this kind of success we're talking is over 30 years ago now, and the club has slowly started to dwindle away to the point where they've actually been relegated into the 2nd division in recent years. Some people expected them to come up on the first time of asking, but they weren't able to do so, and now they are still in that 2nd division. So your job will be to take Saint-Étienne, one of the greatest clubs in French history in terms of trophies won, back into Ligue 1 first and foremost, but then try and challenge PSG in the league, try and topple them, at the same time try and get that first bit of European silverware. They've been to a final and lost before. Your job will be to win it. Now they have had in the past a big focus on youth. You can see that here by some decent facilities and youth recruitment. So your job will be to bring through the next batch of young players from your academy, try and promote some youth into that first team. You might not be able to challenge PSG on a financial standpoint, but if you can bring in some young Wonderkids to develop into superstars, you might just have a chance. Next we're heading to Germany for 3 different save ideas. Now I absolutely loved managing in Germany whenever I've done it in Football Manager. The fan base places over there are huge, even going down to teams in the second and third division, and that is proved by FC Nuremberg here, who have a 50,000 capacity stadium, plenty of history, founded over 100 years ago, and they have so many trophies in the bag. 9 top division titles, DFB Pokal awards, but in recent years it hasn't been as huge of a success. They have actually been to the Bundesliga on a few occasions since the new millennia, but in recent years, as you can see by this graph, it's been a bit of a struggle, finding themselves in the second division more often than not. In terms of overall trophy wins in Germany, Nuremberg are right there competing at the top. They're one of the most historic sides in the nation, and whilst their facilities and whatnot aren't great right now, nor is their playing staff, there is a good chance that you can drag them into the Bundesliga, and once you're there, try and stay up and start to build a foundation for yourself to eventually get to the top of a division. Outside of Bayern Munich and a couple of other teams, the Bundesliga is a table that can really fluctuate a hell of a lot. Teams that come near the bottom one year find themselves in the Europa League places the next, so there definitely is the potential for you to drag this team right to the very top. It's going to take some work, but it would be a hell of a lot of fun. Sticking in the second division, we're heading to FC Kaiserslautern. They've got a very similar story to Nuremberg. They're a club with trophies in their past, particularly in the early 1990 period where they won 2 Bundesliga titles, including the famous story where they won the Bundesliga 2 and then the year after went on to win the Bundesliga in an unprecedented feat, really. You don't see that very often anymore, but they are a team with lots of trophies. If we look at their history, you'll see they were in the top division for quite a while, and eventually in recent years went all the way into the third division. They have made it back up into the second, but they seem to be stuck there right now. Your job will be to take over, like Nuremberg, take them back up to the Bundesliga and try and win that title. And if you can somehow replicate the success of winning the second division and then winning the top division title the year after, you will go down as a legendary manager in Germany and potentially in the world. Like Saint-Étienne, Hamburg are a team that are often in these videos about teams that you should manage and try and bring back to glory, but in recent years this story has only got more appealing to do as a football manager save. Let's start with the basics. This is a club that were in the top division for a while, made it into the second division, and it was presumed that they would go straight back up into the first division of Germany, but they've been struggling in that second division for a while. Now they have a huge history and fan base, a Champions League win and a runners-up in the Champions League back in that 1980s period. 6 top division titles, a European Cup Winners' Cup, Europa League runners-up places. They weren't just a big team in Germany, this was a team that were competing across all of Europe for the highest of honours and even won it on one occasion. That's more Champions Leagues than a lot of the big clubs in world football. But in recent years, like I say, this team has been stuck into second division, and last year, or this season that we're kind of in the FM world here, it really looked like it was going to be the year they would get promoted. But I mean, just have a look at the story of the final day of the Bundesliga 2 last year. The situation they were in, Hamburg looked like they were going to get promoted, and then there was a crazy fall off. Some other teams got promoted when it looked like all hope was lost, and they found themselves stuck in the second division for another year. Maybe they'll get promoted now and it would have been a blessing in disguise, or maybe this is a club that's just cursed to be in the second division. I think a lot of Hamburg fans will tell you that they feel like they're cursed, but your job will be to break that, drag them into the top division, take over Bayern Munich. You get the idea with these German saves. There's 3 different clubs to choose from here, plenty others out there, but Germany is such a good place for your first save of FM24. This could be a fun save if you are looking for a challenge in FM24, but maybe don't want to have to compete with Bayern Munich and PSG. It's Genoa out in Italy, and even though it says we're in the Serie B here, they've actually been promoted to the first division in real life for the coming season, so you will find them in the top division. Now I'm led to believe, based on Seabass's article, that Genoa are the oldest active club in Italy, so that already ticks one box in terms of why you might want to manage them. Second is they are plenty successful, with 9 Serie A titles, or the equivalent of back in the day, but that now is nearly 100 years ago. I mean, it will be next year, 100 years since their last top division win. Now this is a team that were in the second division as mentioned, but on the first time of asking, they did get themselves promoted back into Serie A. There's new ownership as well, and plenty to be positive about. Obviously the first job will be to become stable in Serie A, but there is no real superpower in that league at the minute. You've got plenty of good clubs, Inter Milan, AC Milan, Napoli, Juventus, plenty of others that I could mention that I probably forgot to talk about here. With Napoli's win last year, it's actually been 4 different title winners in recent seasons. You've got Roma in there as well, plenty of huge clubs, and your job will be to try and make Genoa this dominant team. There is space for a superpower to rise in Italy, and Genoa could be the one to go for. Sign the right players, make the right tactic, and maybe you can take this team right to the top pretty early on in your tenure. Now, this is why Seabass's article is so great, because you learn things you would never have known about teams. I mean, personally, I didn't know, but Torino actually had a very successful side in the 40s, one of the most dominant teams in the world at that point. However, after a tragic plane crash, they lost the majority of their playing squad. And like he describes in the article, that really did change how football in Italy looked. Torino could have been one of the dominant sides in the world, but now they found themselves as a team that very rarely see success, but are always floating around in that top division. You can see it's always a bit mid-table, lower level obscurity for Torino. In years gone by, they've been sitting there watching their closest rivals Juventus win league after league title, looking like the dominant side, signing Cristiano Ronaldo and some of the best players in world football, whilst they sat there in the middle of the pack. Now, your job will be to take over Torino, overthrow Juventus, who aren't really having the best of times in current years, and then try and make yourself that dominant force, like we mentioned to do before with Genoa. Torino could be great fun, but they're not the last Italian save we'll look at. Fiorentina is our last suggestion for Italy. Italy is a great place to do a football manager save, and like I say, there is a bit of a power vacuum in the nation to potentially fill in terms of that footballing superpower, and Fiorentina could be great fun to do it with. They are a club that are known for their classy kits and classy players back in the 90s. A lot of people's favourite Italian team because of that time period. However, despite all of their success, they've only actually won the top division twice. But again, I got this from the article, but they were actually the first club from Italy to ever make a UEFA competition final. You can see they were runners-up in the Champions League in 57. Your job, drag this team right to the very top of not just Italian football, but European football. Have the side wearing purple, win that Champions League title. You've got some great players in the team, and it's not like they've been a rubbish club over the last few years. You can see it's very consistently kind of near the top, floating around, but never really getting that success. And that's been the way Fiorentina have been for a while, to be honest. Always up there in the conversation, but never actually winning anything of note. In recent years, you can see it's gone downhill a little bit. They're currently sitting in 7th place after 4 games played in the league this season. And I mean, if you're looking for an Italian save, this would probably be my pick, to be honest. Maybe just because of the kit, I don't know. But they would be a great side to manage, a nice sizable fan base as well, and take the team from Florence to the top of that Italian league pyramid. Don't forget to like the video if you are enjoying up to this point, but for save number 10, we are heading over to Spain to manage Valencia, a team with a massive fan base, a club with plenty of history, nearly winning the Champions League twice in the early 2000s. Can you take them one step further and win it as manager? Plenty of Spanish First Division titles, Europa League wins as well. They are one of the most successful Spanish sides in history, yet in recent years, it has been a downward spiral. They've found themselves struggling, and whilst it isn't reflected here, the current season that they had in real life, so the one that's just passed, found them in a big relegation battle. They've had some successful managers in their past, and they've had Gary Neville too. Where you'll fit on the scale of Gary Neville to Rafa Benitez is up to you and how well you do as Valencia boss, but they've started the season fairly well, found themselves in 5th place, and they have got some nice talent. Again, this is the old squad. It won't have the updated transfers that you guys might see, but there's some good players in there, some players to really build around for the future, and I feel like this is a team where you do want to focus on those young players with great youth recruitment, youth facilities, nice facilities all around, to be honest. It's a club that could definitely build upwards in that Spanish division, overthrow Real and Barca, and become the top team in Spain. Sevilla also look like a good pick this year as well, with how poorly they're doing, but they've not been too bad in recent years. All the teams we've looked at today are teams that have been starved of success. We're calling them sleeping giants, and I think you guys should try and wake them up in your next save. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you've got your save ideas, but if you've got something else, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, and goodbye.